Let's go, let's go. Welcome to Ask Chef Letty. Today's episode is all about pricing. So let's get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Chef Letty, and this podcast, Ask Chef Letty, is all about helping home bakers to take their baking business to the next level. So in today's episode, we're going to deep dive into the topic of pricing, since it's the number one conundrum most of you face. Okay. So for many home bakers, pricing can be one of the most challenging aspects of running a bakery business. It's easy to fall into the trap of undercharging for your products, and even worse, it's easy to fall under the problem of just slapping on like a regular formula, a pricing formula that doesn't accurately fit for your business, okay? Because every business is different. And so you just can't take one formula and slap it on and expect it to work. So the big problem is that most of you start your businesses being creatives, loving, having a passion for baking, but not really understanding the business side. So undercharging for your baked goods not only leaves you with a small profit margin, but it also undermines the value of your products. Now, I want you to take a red pen and write that down. Okay. When you don't charge right, you are not valuing your products and you're not valuing your worth. And so when customers see low prices, they may assume that the quality of your baked good is also low, right? Or on the other hand, if you are overcharging, you can alienate potential customers and make it difficult to compete with other home bakers in your area or even other established bakeries. So it's a lose-lose situation. So understanding pricing is critical to your success. So what's the solution, right? How do you fix this problem? Well, you learn how to price. And in today's episode, I'm going to walk you through the steps to pricing your baked goods correctly and help you avoid the common pitfalls that many home bakers face. So grab a pen and paper and let's write this down. So let's start with tip number one. Okay, tip number one is super easy. Write this down. Calculate the cost of ingredients, labor, and overhead. Okay. Plus add profit margin. Okay. It's super simple. There's 4 steps to pricing. And if you can just follow these steps, you're not going to have an issue. The very first thing is look at your product and see it for what it is. It is a baked good that comes packaged, that has marketing material on it, that you put in a bag and you sell to someone else. So you got to not only factor in the ingredients to make that product, but you also have to factor in everything you see in front of you. The packaging, the sticker, the bag, the ribbon, the menu card that you're adding in, the bounce back card that you're adding in. So all of those things have to get written down, and you need to do the simple math to figure out what it costs you. So if you are buying a box of eggs for $1, okay, which now because of this avian flu, you're definitely not buying a box of eggs for $1. It's more like $20. But let's just take that simple example. If you're buying a box of eggs for $1 and you're going to use 2 eggs in your recipe, well, that's 20 cents. So that you're using, let's just assume actually that you're buying 10 eggs, okay? So you're getting 2 eggs and that's 20 cents. So you get my drift. You see where I'm going? Every single ingredient that you use, you need to calculate, okay? Secondary, you need to add labor. Now, I know a lot of you don't feel right about adding the labor because most of you feel like it's a passion, you love it, it's maybe a side hobby that you're turning into a business, and so you're not really an employee of the company. You already make money with your regular 9 to 5, so you don't see it as labor. But unless you are wanting to start this as a hobby and keep it as a hobby, you must add labor, okay? Because when you grow your business, and that is the goal, right? To grow it, you can't hire on help and say, hey, work for free. Work for free, because I don't charge for labor. So that's not good. So you've got to start adding labor. If you're uncomfortable with a certain amount of labor, just go minimum wage then. You know, if you are not confident in your skills, your ability, or you're just practicing and getting better and better, then go ahead and just add minimum wage. Okay. But if you are an expert or you are creating a work of art, girl, charge your worth, charge for it. Look at what the industry going rate is for a pastry chef and apply that same rule, because although you don't have a degree, you are executing a dessert that looks like a pastry chef made it, one that has a degree. So why wouldn't you want to get paid the same amount they get paid? Okay. All right. And then you've got overhead. So most home bakers fight with me tooth and nail. I don't have overhead, Letty. You know, my students in my baking business entrepreneur course, they all come in there and they're like, hey, I don't have overhead. Yes, you do have overhead. If you have the lights on in your kitchen and you're running a mixer, you have overhead. If you have a table in your kitchen where you're putting all of your baked goods, you have overhead. You're just not factoring it as overhead because you live there. But still, you're stealing that space and that electricity from your family, or your family's paying for that. They're paying the price for your overhead, but you're not charging it onto your customers. So yes, you have overhead. And finally, your profit margin. A lot of companies, or let's just say a lot of home bakers, don't factor in a profit margin because you feel like, well, I work from home, and if I sell a cake for $50, it's pure profit after I take off my, cost of goods, which is like my ingredients, labor, overhead, what have you. And that's not actually correct, okay? Because the profit margin is meant to go towards your business. It does not go in your pocketbook. It is not for you to have money, extra money. It is for your business to collect money for growth, for future growth. So make sure you add a profit margin that you are comfortable with, that makes your pricing still accessible to the people in your marketplace. Because I've heard a lot of coaches out there telling everyone, oh, this is the average profit margin, 3x this, do that, add 50%, and honestly, everybody is different. Every market is different. So your profit margin has to reflect what the market can bear. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're adding your profit margin. And remember, that is not the wage you are collecting as a laborer for your business. You're getting paid to make something, but your profit margin is the money that the company is making to hold it over for future growth, for future packaging, for future mixers, for future insurance, or a retail store you're saving for. Okay. All right. So let's wrap that up. Tip number 1 is calculate the cost of your ingredients, labor, overhead, and profit margin. Okay. Let's roll over to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to consider the psychology of pricing and to use that knowledge to set prices that accurately reflect the value of your products. Now, this one might seem like it's a little over your head, and you might be scratching your head right now going, what the heck are you talking about, Letty? The psychology of pricing. Well, let's go back to let me give you the scenario, right? You are creating a baked product, right? And it is fantastic, and it took you several hours to make, and you are it is flawless. There isn't an issue with it. It is premium and luxe, but you want to charge $20 for it because you love it and you don't really need the money. You're just living your best life baking from home. So what happens to that particular product? Okay, what happens when you? Let me give you this scenario. You're walking down the street in New York City, and someone walks over to you and says, hey lady, you want to buy Louis Vuitton? Follow me. So raise your hand if that's happened to you. Okay. So he opens his trunk and he's got 500 bags in the trunk of his car that are all fake Louis Vuittons. And, they look fake. Okay. Are you going to spend the $5 on the fake Louis Vuitton and walk around proudly because it says Louis Vuitton or it says Louis Vixen on it, actually? No, you're not. Because you know that the real Louis wouldn't be selling their stuff out of somebody's trunk. The real Louis says Louis Vuitton, not Louis Vixen on it. So you know better. And so when you put a premium product, now I'm applying this to your cake business, when you're making something magnificent and it's premium and it's beautiful and it's made with the best ingredients and you took the time to make it and it's from scratch or it's from a cake mix, but it is enhanced, whatever. I don't judge, scratch versus cake mix. It's all good as long as you're putting love into it. Are you going to discount it because you feel that someone will buy it if it's cheaper? That is what we're talking about, the psychology of pricing, okay? Just because you slap a cheap price on it doesn't mean you're going to sell more of it. So you have to understand the psychology of pricing. And you have to set the prices accordingly. If you're selling a bougie, luxe, high-end looking, pimped out cake, then you've got to price accordingly. Don't price it for cheap thinking it's going to sell. It's not. Okay, so that is tip number 2. Price accordingly. Take into account the psychology of pricing. Tip number 3 is all about reviewing your prices regularly and making adjustments as needed to reflect the changes in your cost or market conditions. So what does that mean, Letty? It means that you should be checking your pricing monthly, okay? Because ingredients go up and down, okay? Are you worried that your customer will be like, well, last week that cake was 50 and now this week it's 55? Don't worry about that. People don't remember. And if someone should address that and say, hey, I was going to order that, but now it's $5 more. Well, you can, if you wish to, address it and say, well, guess what? All these birds are dying. These egg-laying hens are dying. These hens are not producing enough eggs. And therefore, the cost of eggs is astronomical. And therefore, guess what? If I pay more, you pay more. And that's what it is. And that's what you say, if you choose to say it. But you don't have to choose to say anything. Because guess what? It's your business. And you run it the way you want. And if the pricing has changed, you can simply say, yeah, the pricing has changed. That's the new price. Would you like to proceed with an order? And you move on from there. You don't owe anyone anything. This is your business and you run it as you see fit. Now you can explain, but don't feel like you need to justify, okay? Regularly regulating your pricing is important to make sure that you are still making a profit margin and that you are accounting for the ups and downs of your cost of goods changing. But you don't need to justify your changes in prices to your audience or to your customers unless they ask you. And if they do ask you, once again, it is up to you to address it. You can address it in the way, either way that I just mentioned, or however you see fit. But it's your business, mama, and you don't need to justify how you run it to anyone. Okay, so that's tip number 3. So the 3 tips, let's wrap it up. 1, calculate your cost of ingredients. 2, remember the psychology of pricing. And 3, review your prices as needed and adjust accordingly. Okay, so if you loved this podcast, you guys, please make sure to tune in next week, because I'm going to be going live every week and recording. So I hope to see you here next week. But for those of you that need help or want to get started with pricing your baked goods correctly, I've created a free guide that covers all of the tips and strategies that we just discussed in today's episode. And all you have to do is click on the link to download it, okay? And it'll go straight to your inbox. And then you have a guide to review and adjust your pricing if needed. So I want to thank you so much, you guys. This is Chef Letty, letting you know that it was my absolute pleasure to be here for you. I hope that today's episode has given you some valuable insights into pricing. And if you have any questions or topics that you'd like for me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Until next time, you guys, remember to stay sweet and make that dough.